Hello, thank you for joining the California Office of the Small Business Advocate for our three-part video series, Policy Day with CalOSBA. I'm Trelynd Gray, Director of the Office of the Small Business Advocate. We are the part of the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development that serves as the voice for California's 4.2 million small businesses. We've organized this series to help you anticipate new policies and programs passed by the California legislature during the 2021-22 regular session and taking effect this year. All the laws that we're going to refer to have already been signed by Governor Newsom and will influence the California business climate this year, 2023, and beyond. Most of them, but not all, will be administered by CalOSBA. The governor opted to sign each of these pieces of legislation because they are consistent with an aspect of his vision of a California for all and support one of his four top priorities for strengthening our small business sector: diversifying the innovation economy and preparing for a net zero future, increasing equity and economic mobility, continued recovery from COVID-19 and workplace protections, and finally, mitigating the effects of climate change on small agricultural businesses. Part 1 features a special guest, Senior Advisor to the Governor and Director of the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, Dee Dee Myers. Director Myers is going to talk with me about the resilience of the California economy and the critical importance of entrepreneurship and small businesses to California's sustainable success. We're also going to learn about the newly expanded Accelerate California program and how it supports the development of California's critical minerals supply chain. In Part 2, we're going to do a deep dive into questions around how to increase equity and economic mobility, talking about some historic measures passed to protect pay equity and support women. Part 2 features a fireside chat with Assemblymember Cotty Petrie-Norris. In Part 3, we're going to look at the support the governor has provided for small agricultural businesses competing in a changing climate and look at how the state is supporting employers and employers are protecting workers even after the end of the COVID-19 state of emergency. Part 3 features a fireside chat with California Department of Food and Agriculture Undersecretary Christine Birdsong. But first, I want to welcome the GO-Biz Legislative Affairs Deputy Director Lauren Greenwood to help us understand a little more about how GO-Biz works with the legislative branch and the governor's office to develop policy. Thank you, Lauren, for kicking us off with a Policy Day with CalOSBA orientation. Lauren?
My name is Lauren Greenwood, and I am the Deputy Director for Legislative and Intergovernmental Affairs. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the Office of the Small Business Advocate Policy Day. Director Trelynd Gray leads this office, which is a voice for California's 4.2 million small businesses in the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, known as GO-Biz. Under Director Gray's leadership, the California Office of the Small Business Advocate focuses on helping to bring about Governor Newsom's California for All vision through further development of the state's small business ecosystem and by ensuring that questions about equity and inclusion are the starting point for all of the state's small business programs. Director Gray organizes convening of incredible state leaders to share the governor's vision of a California for all, and will discuss recent legislation that impacts small businesses, such as how the state is supporting recovery from COVID-19, increasing equity and economic mobility, diversifying the innovation economy, and mitigating the effects of climate change for small businesses. I want to open this conversation by setting the background for where the Office of the Small Business Advocate and GO-Biz fit within government. We are part of the executive branch of government, and the California legislature, made up of the state Senate and state assembly, delegates authority to over 200 agencies to create regulations implementing state statutes that the legislature passes. As part of the executive branch, we work closely with our legislative partners to maintain access to essential services for small businesses and continue to address our climate needs. 2023 is a particularly exciting year for the legislature due to the once-in-a-decade redrawing of electoral maps. We are welcoming many new faces to Sacramento. Nearly 1/3 of the legislature is newly elected, and the state assembly and Senate look more like California than ever before. The legislature will have 10% LGBTQ representation for the first time ever, according to Equality California. California is the first state to achieve proportional LGBTQ+ representation in its legislature. The number of female lawmakers is 50 of 120 seats, and it's a record. This past session, women made up 39 of 120 legislators, up from a recent low of 26 seats in 2017. And the roster of Latino legislators is at nearly 1/3, an all-time high. The legislative body also includes its first Muslim and Sikh members. We are honored to be able to work with legislators who are bringing all kinds of new perspectives to public policy conversations and debates. And we are confident small business will continue to be at the forefront of everyone's policy agendas. Thank you for allowing me to open, and GO-Biz Director Dee Dee Myers and Office of the Small Business Advocate Trelynd will lead us in a conversation about the governor's vision of a California for all.
Thank you, Lauren. And now I want to introduce a special guest, Dee Dee Myers, Senior Advisor to Governor Newsom and Director of the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, otherwise known as GO-Biz. Thank you so much, Director Myers, for making the time to share your thoughts with our viewers today. I just want to start by making sure that everyone is aware of what a high-powered woman is at the helm of the state of California's leader for job growth, economic development, and business assistance efforts. So prior to joining the Newsom administration in December of 2020, you served as Executive Vice President of Worldwide Corporate Communications, not a small job here, and public affairs for Warner Brothers. And before that, you, amazing woman, were White House Secretary during President Clinton's first term. You were the first woman to ever hold that position. But I gotta be honest, my favorite detail in your bio is that you are the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Why Women Should Rule the World.
Thank you so much, Tara. Perhaps we're not quite there yet on women ruling the world, but we're working on it. And thank you for inviting me here today. I'm so excited to be part of the first policy day with CalOSBA because, as Lauren explained, part of what we do is to support the governor's office to identify and implement policies that make California a better place to do business. So thank you for highlighting all that important work.
And thank you, Dee Dee, for doing that work. I want to start by talking about why you feel reassured by the demonstrated resiliency of the California economy.
Thanks for putting it that way. I really do feel reassured, and honestly, there are so many reasons why. But I'll start with the most obvious. The EDD's most recent jobs data shows an unemployment rate of 4.1% for December of 2022. That's a record for us, and it makes the 15th consecutive month of non-farm job gains. California job growth has outpaced the U.S. as a whole, and the state now has 70,000 more jobs than pre-pandemic levels in February of 2020. In fact, since February of 2021, California has added more new jobs than any other state. Over the course of 2022, California added more than 620,000 jobs. That was the second most in the nation, and we grew at a 3.6% annual pace in December of 2022, outpacing the nation's 3.0 annual gain. And it's not just jobs that demonstrate our resiliency. Let me give you some more numbers. We love numbers. From 2016 through 2020, the state's gross domestic product increased by 21%, dwarfing number 2, New York, which was 14%, and number 3, Texas, which was 12%. And that's all from data according to Bloomberg. In 2021, California's GDP grew at 7.8%, and that ranked us third in the nation, ahead of both Florida and Texas. In the fourth quarter alone, GDP growth increased to 9.5%, and that was well ahead of the U.S. national rate, so we were out there in front. And let me help your viewers break this down. These gains added $530 billion, again, billion, $530 billion to our economy, 30% more than the increase for New York and Texas combined, and equivalent to the entire economy of Sweden. So, California's output is bigger than every national economy outside of the US, China, Japan, and Germany. We're fourth largest. We're actually ahead of Germany now. And I'm just going to highlight one more factoid that sometimes surprises people, although it shouldn't. California's GDP for manufacturing gained 13% over those 5 years to $316 billion in 2020 alone, an increase unmatched by any of the 10 largest manufacturing states. Texas was number 2 with 9% growth, and again, we were well ahead. We're here to talk about policy today, and we can thank the governor and his historic $100 billion California comeback plan, in part for fostering this resiliency of our state's economy. Now, with Governor Newsom ending the COVID-19 state of emergency on February 28th, great news after 3 very long years, California is ready to enter a new phase of the recovery.
So we could also thank our small business owners who provide about 2/3 of net new jobs and about 44% of all U.S. economic activity, according to the Small Business Administration. Across the country, new business starts went up after COVID-19. And Dee Dee, I know you weren't surprised that California leads the pack. Monthly new business starts are still now trending nearly 14% above the pre-COVID peak that we saw in December of 2019.
California continues to lead the startup world, including in high-growth industries like hardware, including chip manufacturing, which has been much in the news lately, media, software, and renewable energy technologies, again, in the news a lot, which includes zero-emission vehicles, which we all know California leads not just the country but the world. Silicon Valley ranks as the world's #1 startup ecosystem, followed by Los Angeles coming in at number 6, and San Diego at number 21. So again, we have a concentration of startup capitals. California is quite simply the dominant power, both in deal count and venture capital dollars. And that venture capital is so important. We attracted more than 32.5% of total U.S. deals and nearly 50% of overall capital invested in the U.S. That's more venture dollars and more venture deals than the next 5 states combined. Those 5 states are New York, Massachusetts, Texas, Florida, and Washington, and we beat them all combined. Now, as Californians, we can be proud of that entrepreneurial spirit and our demonstrated formula for success, even when faced by economic headwinds. But let's make no mistake, Governor Newsom remains vigilant about the lingering impacts of COVID-19 and the downturn, and is committed to preparing businesses and communities to respond to future shocks. He ended the COVID-19 state of emergency in February, as I mentioned, but there are still workplace reporting requirements in place that make sure workers are protected.
And we're going to talk about those in part 3 of this series.
Yeah, that's good. Employers need to know about their continuing obligations, and they need to continue to make sure their workers are safe.
They also need to know about the services that are available to them. The governor supports small business by investing $26 million in annual permanent funding in the Small Business Technical Assistance Program and capital infusion programs. This year, he approved an additional $8 million in one-time funding for the women's business centers. What all this pays for is a network of more than 100 small business centers across the state. And I know I'm a bit biased, but I like to think that it's one of the most effective and most robust, but also least known services that the state offers. In the past year alone, 2022, this Small Business Center network, which includes small business development centers, women's business centers, and veteran business outreach centers, community-based organizations, and nonprofits, they supported over 130,000 small businesses with free one-on-one counseling and training. In addition, these partners also helped more than 2,700 businesses get started, created more than 18,000 jobs, and hosted nearly 7,000 training events. And they helped small businesses obtain more than $1.6 billion in capital. Over the same year in 2022, CalOSBA administered more than 25,400 grants, totaling more than $347 million across all of our programs, including the Small Business COVID-19 Relief Grant Program, the Micro Business Relief Grant Program, the Venues Grant, the Nonprofit Performing Arts, and the very popular Dream Fund.
You know, I'm happy to point out our strong fundamentals, but we can't afford to dismiss our challenges. Chief among them, the high cost of living and doing business in our state. I worry about that all the time.
That's why the policies that you'll hear in this series anticipate future shocks and also current disparities. All of us who administer state agencies and departments operate under an executive order issued in September of 2022 to take additional actions to embed equity analysis and considerations in their mission, policies, and practices. Wow. Governor Newsom sits down with pen in hand to approve legislation that speaks to both objectives, economic resiliency and social equity.
I've heard First Partner Jennifer Siebel Newsom comment that policy changes and cultural shifts go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So when GO-Biz partners with legislators and with the business community, technical assistance providers, local government agencies, chambers of commerce, that's what we're working toward, bringing that synergy to move things ahead.
Absolutely. By facing unequal circumstances head on, we can drive equal outcomes and give Californians the chance to reach their full potential and lead healthy and rewarding lives.
Yes, and every legislative calendar is an opportunity to do better against that ultimate goal.
Well, Dee Dee, I know how busy you are, and I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk about policy changes that California is making this year to offer entrepreneurs a better place to do business and pursue their own California dream.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to be with you.
Hello, my name is Christopher Earl, and I'm the Assistant Deputy Director and Southern California Regional Advisor at the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. I support the efforts of the office by serving as the lead within the team on innovation initiatives. With the state facing global competition for talent and leadership in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, as well as research and education, California must expand its innovation capacity by leveraging resources, creativity, and ingenuity that exists across all geographic regions of the state. Through the Accelerate California Inclusive Innovation Hubs, or Accelerate California Hubs as we call it here in OSBA, will catalyze and foster innovation ecosystems across the state. This program aims to advance critical technology development, address industry challenges, foster collaboration and partnerships across industry, academia, government, with the aim of stimulating economic growth and job creation. The hubs will serve as a conduit to regional innovation and talent. Diversity, equity, inclusion are intentional and meaningfully embedded at the core of this program. Today, I have a guest joining me from within the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. Trelynd, how are you today?
Great, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to talk with you today about innovation. But first, before we get into our discussion, could you give us some background on yourself and also the role you have within the governor's office?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And thank you to the California Office of the Small Business Advocate for having me join today to talk about the topics that I know we're going to talk about. My name is Trey Bradley. I am the Deputy Director of Sustainable Freight and Supply Chain Development within the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, or GO-Biz. And as the Deputy Director within the Office of Supply Chain, my role and my office's unit is really at the forefront of understanding the complete supply chain ecosystem within California and what are the opportunities in the nexus in which they connect. California has a diversity of supply chain assets and resources across the state. We have some of the largest ports in the world. We have a robust rail and freight system, but we also have new supply chain opportunities that are emerging due to nearshoring and to working on different projects across the state. So there's a lot going on in the space of supply chain currently, and very excited to be able to share some of the new opportunities here today with you.
Thank you for that, Trey. Also, look, let's get into that a little bit. Could you give us some insight into some of the emerging projects within the state that you're working on or potentially just monitoring at this point?
Yeah, Chris. So one of the really exciting opportunities within California is kind of the space of supply chain development. We're in a fascinating time within the United States where we are rebuilding and restoring and creating new supply chains domestically here within the US, for the reason that we have humongous goals in the climate economy and for ensuring that we have manufacturing capacity for those materials and supply chains here within the United States and here within California, which speaks to kind of what are the opportunities here in California. One of them that we spend a lot of time thinking about and working on across not only GO-Biz, but other state agencies and local agencies is the opportunity that is presented by critical materials. And so a critical material is by definition an item, a material that may be at threat of supply chain disruption or something that is necessary for products that are in our everyday lives. So, for example, they are things like rare earth elements, which are the bottom elements on the periodic table. It's lithium, which is also on the periodic table. It's boron. These are elements that are needed for things like semiconductors, for electric vehicle batteries, for zero emission vehicle magnets, for wind turbine blades, for the magnets and wind turbines, for the screen that I'm speaking to you on. I always make the comment, you've probably touched, multiple items just in, the beginning of your day that have, dozens of critical minerals in them that are necessary to make those products and build them into fruition. Here in California, we have one of the densest critical material ecosystems in the world, which is truly a remarkable opportunity. We have the only rare earth facility in the Western Hemisphere, and combined with China, California now produces over 75% of the world rare earth supply, necessary for semiconductors, zero emission vehicles, for aerospace and defense. And that has only happened within the last several years that has taken place. President Biden awarded that project $35 million, and Governor Newsom, as California was the only state to join President Biden on the national stage last year, highlighting this restoring domestic supply chains initiative. And not only rare earths, but we also have one of the largest concentrations of lithium. We have over a dozen lithium projects now within California, including some of the most fascinating, unique opportunities in lithium development, which is located near our Salton Sea region, which we have noted as Lithium Valley and Imperial Valley. And that opportunity is really fascinating because it is the ability to extract lithium from 100% renewable geothermal power. And so, we can take the lithium straight from geothermal power. It's not like a typical mining process. It's really a new way of thinking about critical material extraction and using that product for then making electric vehicle batteries and the likes, which will go into hundreds of thousands of vehicles looking into the future. But not only lithium, but we have one of the largest concentrations of boron. Combined with Turkey, California also provides over 75% of boron globally. And so, boron is in so many products and screens for electronics. It is in armor for defense and vehicles in that space. And it's also an important element for semiconductors and zero emission vehicle magnets as well. So we have kind of a nexus of all of these different critical material resources located here in California, and they're all emerging and advancing all simultaneously at the same time. And that opportunity is really unique for our state, not only for the immediate term, for developing those resources to address some of the nearshoring challenges we currently have, but also for the future. It allows for innovative development to take place near those projects. It allows opportunities for potential manufacturing right nearby, services, and associated development with those projects, what they will mean for the clean economy, what they will mean for aerospace and defense, what they will mean for other advanced manufacturing spaces is really a huge opportunity for the state.
That is truly fascinating, Trey. And as you speak there, when you talk about the supply chain and the development of those supply chains, I think about job creation and growth and development of regional economies. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking, wow, the impact and the ripple effect of what the success of these projects would bring to those local economies. And the stimulation of the job creation and growth is something that the Office of the Small Business Advocate, is very focused on. And so I think, there's a lot of correlation to your efforts and those within our office. And, I think that is, some of the things that we like to highlight when we talk about economic development within a regional economy. And, these are the things that we like to see when we talk about these innovative type of regions and new development of technologies and things of that nature. And I think that really ties into the overall kind of purpose of what Accelerate California is about. It really, uniquely harnessing California's research and development, science and technology, as well as that investment capital, those angel and venture capital networks, really aiming to catalyze robust partnerships across scientific and technological innovation, really with the goal of positively impacting those economies within geographic areas, and at the same time, really advancing our national competitiveness. And so again, Trey, I thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much, Chris. And if anyone is interested in this topic, I encourage you to go explore online. We have multiple agencies that are now working on this effort. You can always search in the news. This topic is getting highlighted quite frequently, especially within the past year. Explore the opportunity. We have also a document that's an overview of the critical material ecosystem on our website at business.ca.gov under publications, under Office of Supply Chain. And you can read all about these mineral resources and what they're used for and the projects that currently exist. Thank you so much, Chris, and to the Office of Small Business Advocate. I really appreciate this opportunity and being able to highlight this massive opportunity for the state of California and for our nation and for all of the businesses and entrepreneurs regionally and beyond.
Thank you, Trey. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us for part 1 of Policy Day with CalOSBA. We hope you learned something that will help your business or organization grow and thrive here in the Golden State, which is our home. Whether you're a potential partner or a business owner, we encourage you to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and follow us on social media so you can track all the deadlines and eligibility requirements for our programs as they evolve. Sign up for our newsletter on our website at calosba.ca.gov. From there, you can also download our list of new legislation, including those mentioned in this series and others that impact how small businesses operate in our state. Don't miss the other 2 segments for an even deeper understanding of how California supports its small business sector. This is Trelynd Gray, Director of CalOSBA, reminding you that supporting small strengthens us all.